Alright guys, today's notes are on another way to solve quadratic equations. Okay, so if you remember back to Thursday and Friday, we solved quadratic equations just straight up by using square root. In these questions, we specifically can't use square root. So this method is called completing the square. Okay, so in order to complete the square, you have to find a c value. A quadratic equation is written as ax squared plus bx plus c. So in this, we're going to find this value. When we find that value, it's going to give us something that then we can factor. So in order to find the c value, what you have to do is you take b, you divide it by 2, and then you take that whole number and you square it. So in order to find c in number 1, what we would do is we would take b, which is 14, then b over 2 would be 14 divided by 2, which gives us 7. And then so c is just this 7 squared, which gives us 49. And then that's what we put in right here. Okay, and then that's the method, or what we call completing the square. So then we come over to this next example. We take the b value, which is negative 40. We take b and we divide it by 2. That would give us negative 40 divided by 2, which gives us negative 20. And then in order to find the c value, what we have to do is we take negative 20 and we square it. That's going to give us positive 400. So then right here, we would plug in 400. Okay, so that was how you would complete the square. So let's talk about how we would actually solve by completing the square, okay? So now it says solve by completing the square. In order to do this, what you're going to have to do is you're going to take x squared minus 12x, and then you're going to do plus blank minus blank plus 11 is equal to 0. Okay? So the reason we put these two blanks in here is because what we want to do is we're going to put the c value that we find into both of those blanks. So then what we do is we take our b value, negative 12, and then we divide it by 2. So b divided by 2 is going to be negative 12 divided by 2, which gives us negative 6. Then to find the c value, we take negative 6 and we square it. That gives us positive 36. So then that goes into both of these blanks that we put in. So if we add 36 and we subtract 36, we really didn't change the equation, right? Because positive 36 minus 36, that really just equals 0. So that's why we put the two blanks, one positive, one negative, because if we put them together, it would just be 0. Therefore, we didn't change the equation. Okay? So now what? We're going to have two separate parts to this. We're going to have the quadratic part, which is right here. And then we're going to have the part that is the number. So we're just going to have a part that's just a number. And so those two parts are, we now have x squared minus 12x plus 36. And then negative 36 plus 11 is going to be negative, what is that, 20, let's see, why can't I think right now, negative 25, right? Yes. No. Yeah. Because if you would subtract off 11, that would give us negative 36. Okay. So, what you do is you add the 25 over to the other side now, because this is equal to 0, right? Just drop it straight down. So we add the 25 to the other side, which this is our number part, remember? That is our number part. This is the quadratic part. So if we add 25 to the other side, we now have x squared minus 12x plus 36 is equal to 25. So what we're going to do with this right here, guys, is we're going to factor it. The factoring for this is the same every single time. It becomes x, and then we look at the middle number right here, it's negative, so then negative and negative go in each of those. And then our b value, so our b divided by 2 value, see how that's negative 6, is actually going to go right here. So we have negative 6 and negative 6. Okay, so that's how we would factor that. So if we look at it in reverse, negative 6 times negative 6 gives us positive 36. X times negative 6 gives us negative 6. And then we have x times negative 6 gives us another negative 6. Those two come together and make negative 12. And then we have x times x, which gives us x squared. Okay, so that's how those things would all come together. And so then that is equal to 25. What's a different way to write x minus 6 times x minus 6? Well, that's just x minus 6 squared, if we combine those two things, is equal to 25. And now it just becomes solving questions. So we square root both sides. It becomes x minus 6 is equal to plus or minus 5. And then remember, whenever we had the plus or minus, we had to split it up into two different options. So x minus 6 equals positive 5. X minus 6 equals negative 5. We add the 6 to both sides. We get x is equal to 11. We add the 6 to both sides here. And we get x is equal to positive 1. So then we circle both of those answers because both work for us. So, completing the square. A lot of work to do here, but really it's just step by step, guys. Sorry, my Notability keeps freezing up. The first step is right here. So step 1, we need to find the c value. It's the first step. Step 2, we simplify, okay? Step 3 is factoring. Step 4 is solving, okay? So if you want to write that out somewhere here, I'll write it right here. Step 1, find the c value. Step 2, simplify the equation. Step 3 is factor. Step 4 is solve. Okay, so it's really 4 steps. There's just a lot to do in each step. So let's try out this next one. All right, so this next one looks a little bit more difficult. We might have a fraction here. So we rewrite this, x squared minus 5x plus minus 8 equals 0. So we first need to find the c value. In order to do that, we take b, which is negative 5, and then we take b and divide it by 2, so negative 5 over 2. In order to find c, we just take negative 5 over 2, and we square that number. So when we square that, that gives us 25 over 4, because 5 squared is 25, 2 squared is 4. So then that's what we plug in here, 25 over 4, 25 over 4. Okay, and by all means, guys, we can just put that into a decimal. Okay, we don't need to leave that as its fraction, so let me just get my calculator out right here real quick. Whoops, it's not a calculator. So we take 25 divided by 4, that gives us 6.25. Okay, so then we go x squared minus 5x plus 6.25. And then this is going to be negative 6.25 minus 8. So subtract 8 gives us negative 14.25 is equal to 0. So once we plug in our new c values, now we're going to add the 14.25 to the other side. Gives us x squared minus 5x plus 6.25 is equal to 14.25. Okay? From here, remember we factor. The factoring comes from this b over 2 value, negative 5 halves. So we factor that, it becomes x minus 5 halves times x minus 5 halves equals 14.25. The factoring should be easy in these ones. It's just the b over 2 value. So then it becomes x minus, and then we'll change 5 halves to a decimal. So x minus 2.5 squared is equal to 14.25. And then here comes the solving part, right? So this is our fourth step, so we square root both sides. So then we need to take 14.25 and take the square root of it. So 14.25 square rooted. Okay, so we have x minus 2.5 is equal to plus or minus 3.77. Now remember, you always split these ones up. So it's x minus 2.5 equals positive 3.77, and then x minus 2.5 equals negative 3.77. So then to finish this problem, we add the 2.5 to both sides in both equations. And on the left side, we get x is equal to, that's going to be 5.7 plus 5 is going to be 2, or actually I guess that makes it 6. So that's 6.27. Okay, and then negative 3.77 plus 2.5 is going to give us negative 1.27. Okay, and then these become our two answers. So a little bit harder here, guys, right? So this first one, or step 1 is right here. Find the C value. Step 2, we plug in the C value and simplify. Step 3, we did our factoring. And then step 4, we did our solving. Okay, so again, it's a 4-step method. All right, so yeah, let me know if you guys have any questions on this. Completing the square is absolutely a little bit harder than what we've been doing, okay? So please let me know if you guys have questions. All right, hope you have a great rest of your Monday.